So the control center can be accessed a couple of different ways, either from the plan settings bar at the top with the three dots. Click on trade settings, it opens the control center. Or at the very top left-hand corner, there is a menu that I can click on and I can go control center. Now for pool planning, there's a couple of different things that we will cover. We're not going to focus on every single one of these, but I do want to cover the toolbar, connections, the task itself. We already covered trade and user assignments, but then variance reasons and import are very important for pool planning side of things. So the toolbar. So let's open up the toolbar. Let's bring our toolbar up here to the right, and we'll go through what these different options are. So what this allows you to do is toggle these different options on and off. So you'll see as I am adjusting these, right, the toolbar is shrinking. And basically it's just taking those different features off the board. So this does affect the entire workspace. So it isn't just one single individual. So if you turn these things off, then nobody has access to them. So I know some users like to do this, but by no means is this something that you have to do. So I would say most users do keep them all on. Now in this next section of the control center are connections. So this allows you to set the default line, thickness, style, and color, as well as the different visibility options. So for example, if I come over here and I have this one task, we'll move this out of the way, and maybe we'll duplicate this. So I have these two tasks. Right now, the standard connection status or style that we have is this line. So if I decide that I want to delete that, I can come over here. I can adjust the line size, thickness, style. Maybe we'll go with a dotted line, and then we'll go with red. And then now if I go ahead and make that connection, you'll see that it does change. So that can be very helpful. Now, the other two options within connections within the control center are the ability to toggle these on and off. So if I wanted to hide some of these connections or just show them on hover, you'll notice the connections went away, except for when I hover over them. And then there is the other option where you can have them never show. And the only way you would know is if you check the little icon here that shows the upstream or downstream dependencies. And that same thing happens for your imported connections. You can toggle all of these different options on and off. The next option within the control center is the task option here. So when I click on task, it gives me a couple of different options. So I can make days field mandatory. That is something, as well as people mandatory. This can be really helpful if you are trying to keep the team to make sure that they fill in their people, fill in their duration. But if you do turn these things on, just be aware you can't complete the task without filling those fields in. So be aware of that. So I personally was like having them off, but it all depends on the team. The next option here is progress functionality. This is a new feature where you can toggle these different options for progress, right? So if you have maybe a 2-day task, you can specify, hey, on day 1, I'm 80% done. And on the task directly, you'll see that it shows that information too, right? 2-day task, I can click here, I can say 80% done, and then hopefully tomorrow that gives me a pretty clear view that I'm going to get that task done. We also have replanning functionality. This is something that we discussed with the planned. When a task is in planned, if you move it, right, we had the replan option. But now because I had turned it off, right, that option does not show up. So I can show you the difference. So I'll turn it off, move it around. So right now the task is in planned. I have the functionality on. And if I move that task when the functionality is on, you'll get this option that says, hey, you're trying to replan that task. So maybe you have to have a conversation, talk through it with the team. It will also show a planned start date versus the actual start date. So this is a more advanced feature. I don't recommend turning this on if you are just kind of starting out, trying to get the hang of things. It's something that you can utilize and can be very helpful down the line as you really get into it. Now, if we do have it off, right, and I end up moving the task, right, you'll notice that functionality does not show up. The last few options here are just different label options. I always recommend keeping the variance reason option on. So you can see if I toggle it off, right now it is on. You can see that this was incomplete due to weather delays. We also have the option for last edited. This would show not admins, but only users that are not assigned a specific role. So if you are listed as an editor and you're not assigned a role under those user assignments, and you try to move things around, then that's where your email will be tracked. And it will look just like this, where it says weather. It would say the person's email. Now, last but not least, there is the option to toggle imported, modified, and all this would do if you had imported tasks, it would say, yep, this is an imported task, or no, this is a modified task if you happen to move it. So when they're first imported, right, it says imported, but as soon as you move it anywhere within the plan, right, it lists it as modified. And that just shows that, hey, we made a change based off of the new plans, but that doesn't necessarily reflect in my P6 or master schedule. So that can be very helpful within the task. Now, the other two options, we talked about trades, but this is where you can add your trades, right? I can say, trade 1, I can add that crew size, the link, description, click create. So we did cover that in an earlier section. We also have user assignments. This is where you can assign specific emails, specific trade roles. So if I added an email here, right, I could assign my colleague Zach to a specific role. And that would also make it so their email isn't tracked, right? They're just moving their own tasks. And if they try to move other tasks, that's where they would get yelled at and their email would actually be tracked. Next, we have variance reasons. This is a really important one. These reasons are all customizable. You can see we have many in here already. If you'd like to delete them, you easily can, right? Just by removing. And if you'd like to add them, you just click add variance reason. You can select a specific emoji. This is the set that we provide. And then I could say something like snow day. You can also add additional information if you'd like. Click create. And then just like that, we have snow day. So many different options with the variance reasons. Now, last but not least, there is an option within Hoylu to import a CSV file. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. Now, this is a whole separate video that we will cover. Feel free to find that section. But this is just what the mapping looks like. So when you drag and drop a CSV file into Hoylu, this screen will actually pop up and it will allow you to fill in these different fields and map the values.